Hi everyone, what you up to? Oh really? Cool. Anyways, I'm freaking awesome right now. I just got freed, but it's still not completely awesome. There's still so much racism even after we have been freed. I mean, seriously, what is it with this? We are all free, physically, but not from the tyranny and hatred of the man. I can't believe there are even groups out there, like the KKK, who are bent on nothing but an ignorant hatred to us.
Yes, you heard her correctly. Even after slavery was over, African Americans still were never really free. Hate was rampant and groups such as the KKK appeared, bent on a white America. No freed slave was safe from the hatred, and soon many African Americans were bent on a new life.
So get this, we now have these Jim Crow laws that keep us separated as a minority. Seriously, I can't even use the same bathroom as the woman. Everything we have is separated, from schools to even our water fountains. And for some reason, I feel like all the white women's public facilities are in a lot better condition than ours. I need to get out of here quick. Yes, you heard me. I'm packing my bags and I'm going to head west. Maybe out there I can escape from this discrimination.
Separate but equal had soon become a part of everyday life. It soon came to the point where every place had a white and black section. The reason these laws were first instituted was because of the case of Plessy v. Ferguson in which the court ruled that separate but equal was constitutional. Soon many people began to move west to escape the discrimination. This is when the mining boom occurred, and soon mining became big business. But as westward expanded, soon Indian territories began to be invaded. This was the cause of a whole set of new problems, as often violent conflict arose.
Well, hi. Sorry if you can't really hear me as I talk. I have just been working in the mines all day, and I can't seem to get rid of this cough. I really wish I could just play and see my parents more, but I can't. My parents need money, so they had to send me to the mines. I just wish it were a little safer for me. It's not fair. I don't feel like we are treated fairly at all. Just last week, 2 of my friends died in a mining accident. Hold on. I just don't feel like we are there. There's no laws keeping us from the unequal working conditions. Why are there not laws that allow me to go to school?
Child labor became a very big problem in America. Many children often worked full-time, anything from operating dangerous machinery to working in coal mines. Not only were the working conditions dangerous in the first place, but also only a small percentage of the machinery actually had safety devices, which ended up causing many injuries and deaths. Kids should not have been working there in the first place. Their own rights to an education have been taken away due to their parents' unfair wages. Many families could not survive without their children working. Nothing was equal for the children of this time period.
In America, during the second half of the 19th century, cities grew at a frightening rate. Between 1860 and 1910, the urban population flourished from 6 million to 44 million. People from different ethnic backgrounds and every walk of life poured together into the cities in search of jobs, wealth, and simply excitement. There were so many new ideas being put together by all of the backgrounds that new inventions were created. The new inventions allowed an easier way of life. Elevators allowed the growth of skyscrapers within the city, and new heating developments allowed the construction of large apartment buildings. The Industrial Revolution brought American shores new immigrants. By 1900, nearly 30% of the residents of major cities were foreign-born. The newcomers provided the much-needed labor, but also brought about ugly racial and ethnic tensions. The constructions of buildings led to more opportunities and then to more immigration. Soon, new languages, cultures, and ideas spread out throughout the states. Nativists designed immigration laws to exclude the Chinese and the poor. This was not fair, and this shows the continuing issue of equality. Laws being made to exclude the poor and other immigrants were not fair and definitely unequal.
The rise of population in the cities and trade where other countries left farmers in the dust. They began to fall deeper and deeper into debt as the competition to trade with other countries took over. The railroad was the only means of transportation of the farmers' goods, but they were being unfairly charged. With the railroad being a monopoly, they were allowed to overcharge the farmers, knowing that it was their only efficient means of transportation. This was unconstitutional and unfair. The big wigs who owned the railroads were being greedy and unfair to the farmers. There were many groups and many political parties that fought for equality. One example of people fighting for equality is the mud workers. They fought for equality in urban poverty, unsafe working conditions, and child labor laws. They were fighting for equal rights of all people who lived in the city and were not treated fairly. They tried to show America what the monopolies were doing to them and how they were not being fair. They were overcharging and taking everyone's money. They wanted to be wealthier and were not doing it by fair. The mud wreckers published books and newspapers articles hoping to get the word of the unfair behavior around America. They simply wanted equality and wanted to stop the madness from continuing to occur.
The Ku Klux Klan, also known as the Klan, originated during the Reconstruction era. In the beginning of the 20th century, they expanded beyond the South and headed north. At the peak of the organization, it grew to 4 million members. They were successful at raising money but never fully succeeded at coercing blacks and immigrants to live its members' community. The Ku Klux Klan imposed on immigrants and black equality by harassment.
Birth control came out in the era where women had evolved in new women. Birth control allowed women to have a choice. The population was increasing and it allowed every child to be a wanted child. This cut back the struggle of women dealing and managing with a family of typically with 4 kids. Women who took birth control were looked down upon because it allowed them to control their body and have a voice, and it gave them choices. And scene. The leading lady that supported birth control was Margaret Sanger. She organized the American Birth Control League. Women didn't receive equality when it came down to birth control because it made them almost impossible to get
Women didn't have the right to vote. Susan B. Anthony was an activist for women's suffrage. Women didn't receive the same equal rights as men. In 1919 and the 19th Amendment allowed women to vote. It was finalized in 1920.
More immigration coming into the country, nativism grew. Nativism was to keep the country pure of only American blood, and in order to do that, the government wanted to restrict the number of immigrants into the country. The Emergency Immigrant Act of 1921 would only allow 3% of its immigrants to be European. This law was to ensure that the country was only American. Immigrants didn't receive equality because some didn't want them in the country to have their chance at the American dream.
Around the early 20s, farming became the weakest sector in the American economy. Prices collectively collapsed. Small farms became even smaller. The larger farms grew even more. The farming business had become a monopoly. All farmers didn't have the same opportunity. In 1924, the McNary-Hagen Bill ensured that agriculture had equality.
World War I was over and many of the textiles had closed. Wages were lower and quotas were higher. This meant that more work with less pay. The factory workers rebelled. The workers joined unions. The Gastonia strike took place in Gastonia, North Carolina. In the end, 2 people died, 70 were arrested, and 13 was charged with murder. 7 were found guilty of the police chief. Union workers did not receive equality because of their working conditions.
Shortly after the First World War, the United States went into a Great Depression. American citizens experienced social problems. Nearly 13 million were out of work. Many were homeless and penniless. During the Great Depression, the suicide rate soared. Leaders who led the country didn't really acknowledge that there was a problem. This was not fair to any American, and not any American citizen had the chance at the typical American dream. Hello, I'm Taylor Barrows, and this relates to us because, well, it's the issue of equality. It's obviously a major issue. Without all of these problems back in the day, we probably wouldn't all 3 be sitting here. I wouldn't be going to school with a male or an African American. I'd probably still be sitting in the mines.
We wouldn't be talking to each other.
Yeah. I wouldn't, have a job. I don't have one right now, but I wouldn't be able to get a job. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
I go to VSU with all of them.
All right, and that's how it relates to us.